Foreign Australia is about to become a true world power, along with the US and UK. The country will build one of the deadliest, most invincible nuclear-powered conventionally armed submarines in history, and they aren't holding back with caution. This would be the largest defense spending in Australia, and this quest would single-handedly grow Australia's military might from a lower-tier NATO member to a leading member that could destroy China in minutes. Following all of this Australian submarine news, in September 2021, Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States will announce a program called AUKUS, which is an abbreviation coined by the three allies. The US will also send submarines, Powell, Virginia, and Marines, to Australia to sail there when this requirement arises. The new submarine Class K will either deter or counter a Chinese threat. SSN-AUKUS is also well underway and has grown thanks to Vice Admiral Jonathan Meade, the head of Australia's AUKUS task force. On completion, the submarines of the class will operate as the largest attack submarines ever fielded by the navies of both Australia and the UK, and that's a first. Never before has a nuclear-powered submarine been developed for simultaneous use by two navies pooling resources, experience, and designs. Currently, the UK provides the bulk of the experience and data that is used. Seeing as the new submarines are based on the SSN, in August 2018, the UK began a project to replace its Astute-class submarines in service and completed it successfully. This project was originally known as the Maritime Underwater Capability, but was later renamed the Replacement Program for the Astute-class submarine, or simply the Replacement Program. To kickstart the effort, the UK Ministry of Defence awarded an initial $2 billion, which was equally split between BAE Systems and Rolls-Royce, for both companies to consider the kinds of capabilities the new SSN-class submarine could wield. All was going smoothly, as planned, until China decided to become a little too aggressive and began invading sovereign territory and firing laser beams at foreign aircraft. Of all the countries to be aggressive toward, China picked the one that has the most perfect and friendly alliance with the US and UK among the United World Powers. Australia must be protected at all costs, which would now make the country a world power, rivaled only by the US and UK in March 2023. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak announced that the UK would boost defence spending by an additional $6 billion over the next 2 years, with the AUKUS program expected to benefit from this. It was also in March 2023 that the UK's SSNR project was renamed the SSN-AUKUS, which would now build powerful nuclear submarines not just for the UK, but for Australia too, with nuclear propulsion, vertical launch systems, and other technologies contributed by the US. This would make Australia the second country in history, after the UK, to gain access to US nuclear submarine technology regarding vertical launch systems. The US and UK were already working on those under the development of another UK submarine class, the Dreadnought-class SSBNs. These vertical launch systems would generally be nuclear capable, but President Biden made it clear that the OCS submarines that Australia receives will not be nuclear-armed, only nuclear-powered. The submarines will not have any nuclear weapons of any kind on them. According to him, Australia is a proud non-nuclear weapon state and is committed to staying that way. Vice Admiral Meade also addressed nuclear-related fears in Australia, particularly on the safety of having nuclear technology in the land. He answers that both the US and UK have an unblemished record with their over 500 nuclear reactors in the last 7 decades, which have powered 149 million miles of travel. That's 300 times the journey to the moon and back. This effectiveness is ensured by the highest standards of safety, and Australia, according to Vice Deputy Meade, will uphold them. In addition to that safety measure, it was revealed that the nuclear reactors to power the Australian submarines will arrive in the country welded, shielded, and sealed, not to be opened over the 3-decade lifespans of the submarines. That would imply a retirement from service around the 2070s, since the Australian SSN-AUKUS submarines are expected to enter service in the 2040s to replace the country's Collins-class Marines. The United Kingdom, on the other hand, would have the first of its SSN-AUKUS submarines a decade earlier, in the 2030s, because the country already has the infrastructure to build nuclear submarines. Australia, at the moment, doesn't. But the UK and US are committed to helping Australia develop its own indigenous manufacturing capability. This development will be such a huge one that it's expected to provide 20,000 jobs over the next 30 years. with 8,500 people being directly employed in Australia's submarine building and servicing department. All of these Australian developments are at least 2 decades in the future. But the country needs a sovereign fleet improvement as soon as now. For this reason, the U.S. will make a delivery to Australia in the 2030s of its most advanced submarines. The Virginia-class submarines, representing their class, were entered by U.S. Virginia, the first of the Virginia-class submarines and the first U.S. Navy submarine to be completely designed on a computer. U.S. Virginia is a nuclear-powered cruise missile fast attack submarine built by the Electric Boat Division of General Dynamics. She was delivered to the Navy in 2004, but wouldn't spend much time enjoying her new home, as just 1 year later, she would be deployed to support the global war on terrorism, where she showcased her might and stealth reconnaissance and weapon system technology, the result of millions of hours of development. In fact, by 2007, approximately 35 million labor hours had already been spent designing the Virginia-class. Constructing a single Virginia-class submarine required around 9 million labor hours and over 4,000 suppliers, resulting in a submarine with a whopping $3.45 billion price tag as of 2021. However, one reason for this insanely high cost is that the U.S. Virginia, being the first of the class, missed out on some cost reduction and optimization courses that, for a program that cost $29 billion, were far too important. The U.S. Virginia and her siblings all have a 25-knot top speed on the surface and an Olympic gold-winning underwater speed of 35 knots. They're able to swim stealthily and quietly at 25 knots. This American dominance in the mobility department is thanks to a general-purpose electric SG-9 nuclear reactor, which can run for more than 30 years without having to refuel. In terms of weaponry, the Virginia-class wields 65 missiles and torpedoes in total, including the UG-84 sub-harpoon missile, whose primary hobby is to put boats below water. The novel anti-ship and land attack system is the dual-purpose Tomahawk, which is highly lethal and maneuverable with the ability to change course and enable new target corrections in flight. Additionally, the Mark 48 is an advanced heavyweight guided torpedo with the capability to destroy any target in sight, regardless of its size. These targets are spotted with relative ease by the submarines, thanks to the most advanced sensor suite the U.S. has to offer. This suite includes a team of a U-shaped large aperture bow sonar, lightweight wide aperture arrays on the port and starboard flanks, a TB-29 towed passive array for rearward detection, and a high-frequency sonar array mounted on the sail and chin to detect and avoid destructive sea mines. This spying-style operation is enabled by an unimaginable level of stealth for submarines, which is enabled by overall propulsion quietness, urethane tiles applied to the hull to dampen internal sound and absorb, rather than reflect, sonar pulses. Additionally, software systems monitor and reduce electromagnetic signatures when needed. The Virginia-class is a stealthy, quick, sensitive, and heavily armed class of submarines that most would consider the Navy's version of the best thing since sliced bread. Soon, Australia will have a fleet of these American submarines to call their own. Australian naval personnel are already embedded in the U.S. military's nuclear propulsion school and will likely be tasked with training the future generation of sailors who will operate the Virginia-class submarines after a decade of service in Australia. The Virginia-class submarines will be joined by the SSN-AUKUS submarines, working hand in hand, side by side, and missile by missile to send the clear message to China that Australia will not be messed with. Subdue some now, if you haven't already, for Australia. I hope you enjoyed it, and remember to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss out on any of our new content. See you next time.